what next for Uhuru government after Senate stalemate? Last night, there was stalemate. For the 7th time, the revenue allocation formula was not passed. And there was an adjournment without debating or passing the county allocation formula. Curiously, it was former majority leader in the Senate, one Kipchumba Murkomen, who was removed from that office of power that moved the adjournment motion. And he defeated what looked like the pro-Uhuru senators by 34 votes against 26. This puts President Uhuru Kenyatta in a quagmire. Clearly, from the debate and the way the narrative has been shaped in the last few weeks, there is no goodwill, first of all, from Honorable Raila Odinga and DP or Deputy President Dr. William Samoei Ruto on this revenue issue. It actually turns out that it is a hot political potato because of implications on the 2022 elections and the way the population, Kenyans, are perceiving each of those senators voting or taking the issue. Number two, there is also the leadership of the Senate, which has now been clearly put into question. It appears it is actually a weak leadership of Jubilee in the Senate. We are not forgetting that it was just put into office just the other day. The fact that the majority leader and the whip could not marshal senators to vote and pass the bill, and even more importantly, could not stand up against the amendment or the adjournment motion, speaks volume of the capabilities of Senate leadership in Jubilee. And that is why the country has been waiting for 3 months for a revenue formula to be passed in Senate to allow our counties to receive allocations to be able to control and run activities. And actually some counties have gone for months without pay, and in some others they are now threatening work stoppage. Despite going for 7 times, and yesterday was the 7th, the senators have not been able to agree. But why? Why do we have a quagmire? What is so special that now Senate cannot stand up to be counted as one? Because one would have thought that it was all clear because President Uhuru Kenyatta has the support of opposition leader Raila Odinga through the handshake and the so-called BBI. But no, the issue has now turned political, and it is actually threatening county cash flows. And I've said some workers, like in Homa Bay County, are now threatening to strike. And this also puts a strain, as I had said last week, on the handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga, and by extension, the BBI, which is now in limbo, and it's standing on shaky grounds. In fact, it was the majority whip in the Senate, one Irungu Kangata from Murang'a, who first sounded the warning by linking the passage of the bill or the passage of the revenue formula in the Senate to the handshake and BBI, and had actually said prior to this that if BBI was to survive, then the formula had to pass. Now that it has not passed, it was defeated. Now that an adjournment motion has again put to injury the same assertion, do we assume then that BBI is dead? Do we assume that the handshake is under shaky grounds? That is very clear, and the writing is on the wall. What is clear, though, is that the revenue allocation formula took a political angle, and this has led to the quagmire in which the country finds itself. Everything collapsed on that premise because the optics were against it. Some senators actually felt that the Mount Kenya politicians, senators and politicians, were pushing the revenue formula, which they actually christened one man, one vote, one shilling, for their own political expediency for 2022 elections. And there was also a feeling, secondly, that in some political quarters, especially in the ODM party, that the narrative by Mount Kenya politicians was meant to cajole them to support the formula, where most of the counties were actually losing millions and some of them billions, which will in turn have the same counties turn against the ODM party in 2022. So there was already fear. Then it became a political balancing act for senators. Do we vote for it and it passes and we hang ourselves under the noose of this politics? Or what do we do? Some strategically chose to vote for it. Some saw it was very grievous and they voted against it. And that is what the former majority leader, Kipchumba Murkomen, told the Senate last night clearly, that it was a political hot potato because you could not remove money from one county and take to the next. That would be political disaster.
I wish our conversation about those counties, Mr. Speaker, would be done when we are visiting those areas. Mr. Speaker, this country, there are parts of this nation that people are still walking without clothes. There are parts of this nation in Wajir where people are drinking water. They have to go for 1 week to get water. Mr. Speaker, for us to appreciate this kind of conversation, I am requesting my colleagues, let's give dialogue one more chance. Let's adjourn this motion, Mr. Speaker, for us to have a conversation, Mr. Speaker, on how to find a way forward that, Mr. Speaker, can unite all of us.
Hiyo mambo haitaendelea hata kama ni nini, na mimi haki ya Mungu mimi sitanyamaza. Mimi hii kiendelea, ikiwa ati sisi tutanyang'anywa pesa, ati pesa sipewe kilomita za ardhi, haki ya Mungu kama itapewa kilomita ya ardhi, hata lita ya maji itapewa pesa, na mimi nitafunga hii. Kwanza yangu inatumika, inatengeneza pesa. Ile ardhi hakuna ardhi unauza.
But for now, let us be our brothers keepers. Let us be our brothers keepers, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's nothing. The Bible says, for what does it benefit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? What will it benefit you to gain 50 million for your county and lose the unity of this country, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, until we get to that level where everybody, and truly we've costed functions, everybody talks about dividing the pie. That is what we're doing here today, Mr. Speaker. But no one is talking about how we bake a bigger pie for this country, Mr. Speaker.
So while some senators and MPs from the larger Mount Kenya were solid on this and wanted the formula passed as presented, others, especially from the marginalized and the ASAL areas, were on the opposite side. And the blame then was shifted to the handshake. And especially Mount Kenya politicians now blamed the handshake, and especially the Tanga Tanga allied MPs were very categorical that the stalemate has been caused and is lip service by one Raila Odinga, whose senators have been on both sides of the debate, some supporting, some opposing. In fact, 7 ODM senators, like Professor Sam Ongeri of Kisii, Cleophas Malala of Kakamega, Eric Mogeni of Nyamira, Ledama Olekina of Narok, and others voted to defeat the sharing formula. And remember, these are ODM senators. Although there is a proposed formula, the formula seems to have attracted, unfortunately, political undertones, and beneath the ground, groups started taking positions very early for 2022. And therefore, even before the voting, the formula was already on rocky grounds. Kakamega Senator, for example, Cleophas Malala, called it a hot political potato, and it needed a political solution to end the stalemate. He actually said that Senator Kangata was playing politics with the formula, and he would not allow NASA strongholds like his own Kakamega County to lose at the altar of political cards for 2022. And therefore, it seems we are in a long-pronged political war. What is happening, therefore, curiously, is why the Senate avoided recommendations of the Commission for Revenue Allocation. That is one issue I have not understood. Why did the Senate ignore the implementation guidelines as offered by the CRA? Because CRA came up with the recommendations and how to implement it. And one of those recommendations was that it should be phased. That is, it should come in phases to avoid disruptions in service delivery and programs run in the counties. That is one of the recommendations to the Senate as they were to debate it and consider. The second one was that the funds should be specifically set aside to cushion any county that will see a loss in revenue that was in excess of 5%. Now, why Senate did not consider those is a mystery. Secondly, the CRA blames National Treasury, and we have seen the chair saying this, for not allocating more funds from the national government to cushion more county as the implementation was to take off. Now, more money from the central government means more allocation, means those counties which will lose will then be cushioned by money set aside. It was to be a win-win situation. Why didn't the Senate do this? Why did the National Treasury fail the country in having these recommendations taken care of?
The Commission, aware of the likely impact of the new revenue sharing in terms of allocation to counties, made a provision for cushioning all the counties that were likely to see a decline of more than 5% in their equitable share. This cushioning provision would be achieved through an increase in the equitable share allocation to counties.
This explains why critics of the current formula feel that if the Treasury had given money to cushion those counties, especially from the ASAL areas, Mandera, Wajir, Kitui, and the rest, we will not be in this impasse. What does that mean? That the National Treasury is partly to blame for what we have right now. But more importantly, the question then is on what happens to the 85% of the money which Kenya has, which actually the national government uses, while we fight for the 15%, which Senate stalemate is about on the allocation formula. The 85% is still intact, and the Treasury could not give a commitment or could not even give more money to be used. What is clear, it will be a tough balancing act, especially for the president, because the circus seems to point to a wider issue at the national front. How does the country use money which it collects from all sources?